Payne awakens in another fever dream caused by the injection from the mysterious woman. Wandering through the mindscape version of the home his family was murdered in, he listens to his wife pleading with him, apologizing endlessly. Soon, he finds himself in Punchinello's office as flames erupt around the walls. A handwritten note lay there on the desk, which informs Max that he was inside of a graphic novel. Afterwards, the phone rings, and the one on the other side is speaking gibberish. In a course of déjà vu, Payne ends up back in the office, but this time, the note informs him that he is inside of a computer game. The dream concludes with him finding a doppelganger of himself standing over his wife's deceased body before being accused of being the killer. After killing this version of himself, he struggles to awaken from the illusion. With another nightmare sequence, I had a much harder time getting through the blood trail maze than the first one. It took maybe 20 minutes of attempts as the invisible platforms felt very thin, so the slightest movement in the wrong direction could send Payne plummeting into the dark. This drug-induced dream brings up the sense of personal responsibility that Payne feels over the death of Michelle. Seeing a version of himself accusing him of murdering her, as well as the image of her mentioning the memo she received, seems to put this together. He walked out without hearing what she had to say, and likely feels that if he just heard her out or stayed, things might have ended differently. The notes found in Punchinello's office were amusing. In true Remedy fashion, they break the fourth wall, and Payne is told he exists in a comic book and a computer game. The Valkyr drug blew open his consciousness and allowed him to learn the truth of his reality. If Alan Wake had already been created, I wonder if the note would have informed him that he was a character in a book. Max wakes up in the snow and in the recesses of his memory remembers the woman who dosed him mentioned going to Cold Steel. This was a foundry that was owned by the Aesir Corporation. Taking his only lead, he sneaks in and fights his way through the mercenaries before finding a walkie-talkie. Listening in, he learns that they are aware of the breach and plan to destroy all evidence related to their operations. This level introduced a host of new mechanics. From the tripwire explosives that killed me a few times before learning how to deal with them, to the molten steel river that I admittedly jumped into a few times by accident, there were several new setups to catch me unprepared. Specifically, the guy hiding in the shipping container here. In the aftermath of his overdose and meeting what I presume to be the villain of the story, it is appropriate that the story takes us to a foundry. Within the cold steel foundry, metals are melted down, poured into a cast and cooled to create things. Payne's resolve is being tempered and formed during this scene against the true masterminds of the story. First, he was burning red hot, volatile, but as he cooled, his resolve turned hard as steel, less volatile and gaining more strength. As he continues through the cold steel foundry, Payne discovers that one of the chemists who worked on the Valkyr drug was popped skimming some product for a personal function and is being held in one of the lower cells. The elevator taking him down becomes his next destination. I have to be honest, I loved the design of this level. Platforming aspects were front and center here. With the time-delayed fire dodging, trip mines, destructible walls for progression, and even backtracking, for some reason I enjoy occasionally backtracking to collect things, even if it is just for some sniper ammo. This chapter seems to be about attempting to track down a lead that can give Payne some intel. The chemist is being held prisoner in an old testing facility and Payne must locate him. I am very much interested in hearing what he has to say, considering I have questions about the nature of the Valkyr drug. Other than the obvious high, I suspect the drug may have lingering effects on the body or psyche that the chemist may be able to clarify. Having descended into the hornet's nest, Max finds the laboratories and processing plants where the Valkyr drug was brewed. The chemist mentioned in the previous chapter assisted in getting Payne through into the research lab. A computer within the lab detailed a military operation called Project Valhalla, in which they experimented with a substance to enhance endurance and combat performance of their soldiers. The project was eventually scrapped, but it appears the woman we met earlier took over where the army left off. There was a note of a data breach, and she authorized a cleanup crew to deal with it. Doubling the dose of Valkyr, she had the test subjects dropped off at Payne's residence with the intention that they would kill the individual who received the leaked information, Michelle Payne. Barely making it out before the entire facility exploded, Max reflects on the answer to the question about the death of his wife. This was another fun chapter. Finding the giant vats of Valkyr being cooked up in the level design is a great way to exposit aspects of the story without being directly told. Within the lab and being forced to take the time to defuse the bombs, I felt some anxiety, considering every second it took me was another that was counting down on the self-destruct timer. Frankly, I panicked a bit when locked down in the final decontamination room when the final 30 seconds began to count down. The timer hit 15 before I figured out how to blow the door using the very same laser trip explosives that we had spent the last few chapters getting used to. I felt this was a great setup for a freak-out moment. Finally, it all comes together. I had a feeling after finding Michelle's diary that she was the original target, and it turns out that was correct. The question I had at this point is, how did she access this information? The witch stated there was a data breach. I doubt Michelle intentionally broke into a corporate server, so I'm curious if it was an accident or the actions of a third party. Knowing that Valkyr caused increased endurance and battle performance leads me down the thought train on the ramifications of Payne being dosed at the end of the previous section. If the whole point was to increase stamina and other factors, is Max effectively a super soldier now that he has taken a lethal dose of it and come out alive? This may be the reason some enemies like Jack Lapino and other named bosses were so much more difficult to kill, because they were Valkyr junkies and had gained increased durability as a result. Sitting in an all-night diner, Payne receives a message from BB, the only other DEA agent who knew he was undercover. Wanting to know what happened, he set up a meeting with the fugitive detective. As suspected, Payne confirms that BB was on the take and was responsible for Alex's death, having set up the meeting. Leading Payne on a chase down the parking garage, his luck eventually runs out when Payne puts him down. At that time, a payphone rings and Alfred Woden sets up a meeting so he can inform Payne about the nature of his enemy. There's not much to say on this level. The design is a spiraling parking garage that is nearly identical on each tier. I'm loving the new shotgun, as it allows for multiple shots fired during a bullet time dodge before landing. The original shotgun would usually allow one before the end lag of the recovery animation kicked in. This left me exposed for counterattack, so the new one that fires more rapidly was more my speed. It looks as though we found who Loki is. Just like the trickster god, BB was the inside man who played them all for fools and pulled the trigger on Alex Baldur. He was responsible for Payne's personal Ragnarok to begin. Woden has been an unknown factor up until now, but promising to give us information on the mysterious woman is a step in the right direction. He is holed up in the Asgard building with unknown others. Due to the building names and his personal namesake, it sounds like they will all fill the roles of the Aesir gods. Max meets with a stranger at the Asgard building and is informed that the woman who dosed us and is ultimately behind the Valkyr drug is named Nicole Warren. She was involved in Project Valhalla but did not give up the research after it was shut down. Inside, Max is introduced to the inner circle. Woden requests Payne take her out before armed men enter and shoot up everyone inside. As he works his way through the building to escape, we see on a security camera that Alfred Woden was pretending to be dead and stood up perfectly fine even after the shooting. The inner circle had been compromised by Nicole Warren, the CEO of Aesir Corporation, but the one-eyed man did leave some schematics for the Aesir building so that Payne could break in. Before heading down into the basement, Payne collects evidence that Woden was a client of Candy Dawn and was filmed during the act. This chapter added a new difficulty aspect with the giant multi-floor rooms where enemies can be shooting from any level. This level also made a new twist on the laser mines by setting them up in a location that would kill Payne if detonated. As such, it required me to hop over the tripwires in the fashion of a 3D platformer. I enjoyed the X-Files joke regarding the Inner Circle in reference to the syndicate that was behind the scenes throughout most of the show. I would have said it seems like an oddly specific time for the entire group to be assassinated, but it appears that Woden set up the event as a show to Payne and to kill off the other members in one go. The motivation is a little up in the air. It is mentioned that Nicole Warren had them bought off, so it may have been his way of removing compromised assets from the game. The fact he set up information for Payne in order to take out Horn makes me think one of two things. Either A, he is genuinely trying to assist Max, or Alfred is using him to take out his competition, Ms. Horn. I also appreciate his character design having one lens of his glasses broken with the other intact, referencing how Odin cut out one of his own eyes for the gift of prophecy. After making it down into the records room of the Asgard building, Payne discovers that the former Inner Circle had been pulling strings behind the scenes for a long time. Project Valhalla was simply one of many events they have been involved in. Based upon the evidence, it is understood that Woden had the others executed in order to consolidate power to himself. Eventually, Payne managed to escape the building and set his sights for Nicole Warren. There was a couple fun spots in this section, and I admit I enjoyed ricocheting a grenade into a room with some goons more than I should have. This level felt like a maze to me, and I managed to circle around and end up in the starting room without intending to. The final circular battlefield gave me a lot of grief. With how open the whole place was, trying to get a good vantage point to take out one of the enemies without leaving myself open to counterattack was a trick. There's not much to say in this chapter other than the confirmation that Woden set up the execution of the others in order to consolidate power. It appears he is using us to take out Nicole Warren. While Payne has just reason to, considering her involvement in Michelle's death, I can't help but feel that he is involved in a power play that Max doesn't fully understand. That he may be creating a vacuum that Alfred would soon fill. Unfortunately, the moment he enters the Aesir building, Payne is greeted by a security entrance and metal detectors. This sets off the building, letting them know the moment he arrives that there is an intruder. Working slowly up the building, he bumps into Mona Sachs in an elevator. She had been ordered by Horn to execute Payne, but with the memory of her dead sister on her mind, refuses, knowing that all of this leads back to the woman who hired her. As more suits arrive, she defends Max and receives a bullet to the head before the doors shut to hide the body. However, when the elevator doors reopen, Mona is somehow gone. Upon reaching Horn's office, the former detective discovers enough evidence on her laptop to put away her entire organization. At this point, he was beyond caring and puts a bullet through the screen. I will say I loved this level. The design was so unique, and there were sections that incorporated never-before-seen mechanics. In what I imagined to be the server room, where each breakable object sparked a new encounter, made me strategize positioning before initiating the fight. Also, the laser dodging inside the elevator was a great change of pace in theory. However, this is where one of my only problems with the combat came front and center. The bullet spread feels very unreliable, so when trying to shoot the mines, even if I was directly targeting it, the bullets would miss sometimes. This led to over a dozen deaths trying to go up the elevator, simply because the game itself wouldn't hit what I was aiming at. We get a little more information on Mona Sachs in this chapter. It is possible I missed it earlier, but it looks like she was contracted by Nicole Warren at some point. Based upon her behavior though, she wasn't loyal to the Aesir CEO and vice versa. Judging by her taking a shot to the head and somehow walking away, it looks like she has as many close calls as Payne if we take into account how she was tortured by the trio and somehow managed to fight her way out. Since her sister was killed, it appears that just like Max, she lost the only family she has. Upon finding the evidence on Horn's laptop, the bullet he puts on the screen shows on full display that Payne doesn't care about bringing her down through legal channels. Death is the only way out for either of them. At long last, we are here at the final chapter of Max Payne. It starts off with Horn sending a helicopter to stalk us through the final phases of the building. Dodging machine gun fire, Payne makes it to the roof where the witch attempts to escape via chopper. The antenna support cables are broken one by one, and Max causes it to collapse onto the escape vehicle, killing Horn and everyone inside. With his revenge complete, he gives himself up to the NYPD, and the story ends with him in the back of a police car, knowing that Alfred Woden will have something set up to make sure he is released. Having a helicopter chasing us through the level gave extra fire on our backside, keeping us moving. Upon reaching the rooftops, I quickly discovered how to break the remaining cables. The countdown allowed Horn to escape once before I discovered I was supposed to also impact the antenna and cause it to fall. As I have come to expect from Remedy stories, the build-up leading into the climax has more lore than the climax itself. The final section on the roof felt more like the final dominoes falling after an intricate pattern has already been set. With the narrative build-up, the resolution of this game was predictable in a good way. Woden already intimated he would keep us out of prison, and with the death of Horn, there's only one plot thread left. What happened to Mona Sachs? I guess I may have to wait until the fall of Max Payne to find out.